Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Last but not least, we have our final guest, and she is Shahad Al-Mulham, and she knows all there is to know about the legality and also what we need to know about the real estate. Good evening, and thank you so much for being with us.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for having me.
Would you mind tell our audience what exactly you mean when we say Shahad Al-Mulham? You are an attorney, correct?
Yes, I'm an attorney currently working at Mashari العصيمي's law firm, and I'm assisting in the money laundering department with Mr. Ali Al-Attar. I have a bachelor's degree in law from Kuwait University and a master's in law from the United States.
Now, we have heard of many fraud about the money laundering cases regarding the real estate in the state of Kuwait. Could you elaborate on that?
Yes. Recently, in the past years, we've witnessed a lot of cases that had to do with money laundering. It has to do with fraud, whether fraud in real estate, whether it's in Kuwait or abroad. And we've noticed a lot of patterns, specific patterns that are happening. And people are still being under the impression that they are dealing with some people that are being honest.
I'm anxious to know what is the famous and well-known case that you have tackled, but without mentioning any names or real estate names or probably attorney firms' names.
Of course. I'm not even allowed to disclose this kind of information, so I'm not going to mention any names. But one of the most famous cases that we've worked on here in Kuwait, it actually happened in a foreign country where the criminal would purchase houses from the foreign country, and that criminal would actually have the warranty deed. He would be the actual owner of the house. This house is actually destroyed by fire. This house, people cannot live in this house. This house is completely destroyed and uninhabitable. It usually has a lot of homeless people living in it, sometimes animals living in it, and sometimes it just ceases to exist. It doesn't really exist.
Unfit for a human being to be living in it.
Exactly. And so this criminal, once that criminal buys that house, and sometimes he buys or she buys that house for $1 only, and then comes to Kuwait, paints a beautiful picture of a fake house from Photoshop or from the internet, and then sells this house for up to 200, 300,000 Kuwaiti dinars. And so people would go and say, okay, that's a beautiful home. I want to invest in this beautiful home. And people would go invest in that beautiful home. They'd say, good, I have all the paperwork ready with me. They have the warranty deed. The warranty deed is in their name. And so the criminal would send them a monthly income because they invested in that house, as if someone actually rented the house. And at some point, that income, it stops generating. And so the people and the victim would go and investigate. And when they actually travel to that country, they realize that there are no renters, the house is completely destroyed, and it's all just a scam.
Now the crooks, I'm going to call them the crooks, the people who are trying to steal from you or probably commit fraudulent cases against you. They go through some kind of sequential steps for you to become their first victim. What exactly you need to advise the people from not to do this in the future regarding buying real estate outside the state of Kuwait?
I think people are relying on paperwork. But
this is a no-no.
Yeah, they're relying on paperwork because as lawyers, we always tell them, look at the paperwork, look at the contract. And this new method of scamming people is they have all the paperwork ready. And so people would say, okay, a lot of paperwork, I'm just going to sign. They don't read. They don't notice the correct stamps.
You mean they confuse the buyer by putting lots of paper in front of them, and they use the fine print, you cannot even see it. So
yes.
Therefore, the kind of boring situation, you want to resort for signing and get out of there.
Yes, people don't want to go through a lot of legalities.
That's correct.
So I really do tell people, please hire a lawyer, especially a lawyer in the country where you are planning on purchasing that property. So if you're planning on purchasing property in, let's say, in Europe, go hire a lawyer in Europe. go hire a lawyer in the United States. Let that lawyer investigate that property. Let them see the paperwork, and then hire a lawyer here in Kuwait as well, if necessary, to follow up with all of that paperwork. This is the solution, I believe, to stopping people from entering into these scams.
We have an old saying here in Kuwait and everybody else, القانون لا يحمي المغفلين. It means that the law does not protect the idiots.
Yes.
So what do you think?
I think people are taking all of their precautions, but those criminals are really smart and they're doing their job very, very, very well. And as I explained to you, in the past, people thought scamming was just an illusion. And
what do you mean by that, but just illusion?
So in the past, what people used to do, what criminals that committed fraud in real estate, what they used to do is they claimed there was a house. They claimed there was nothing really.
So this is a crime. Already it's a crime.
Yeah, of course it's a crime when you sell something that doesn't exist. And so now, when people realize that, oh, in the past it was an illusion, in the past there was no paperwork, and now they see paperwork, they're like, okay, I'm done, then this is all correct, this is all legal, and that's when they fall into a scam.
This is a personal question for you. Why you, as an attorney at law in the state of Kuwait, encourage people, the Kuwaiti people, as well as the expatriates, to invest in their own country? Why do you have to go through the hassle and to go outside the state of Kuwait and risk yourself of fraudulent?
I cannot advise people on whether they want to purchase real estate in Kuwait or outside of Kuwait. I think people just want to invest, and opportunities to invest are here in Kuwait and outside. And fraud is happening here in Kuwait as well as it is happening outside.
But it's a higher risk outside the state of Kuwait because you do not know the laws and the legalities.
Yes, it could be. But then again, people would like to invest in other countries.
Such as? Nowadays, what is the most attractive place in the world to buy in, the real estate?
Well, along with the cases, it's been happening a lot in the US. Some of it has been happening in the UK, Turkey, some places around Europe as well, and also in the GCC and in Kuwait itself.
Okay, we can go back to lots of things, but what about the criminals that you apprehend over here or probably abroad? What about the punishment for them?
Well, we are very proud to say that us at Mashari al-Asaymi's law firm, we've tackled the case and we've actually helped the public prosecution to understand the way these criminals are committing fraud, the ways they're committing money laundering. And we're very proud to actually say that, I'm sure if someone says something else, they can correct me, that in Kuwait, we received the first verdict that is in favor of the victims in the GCC. Kuwait was the first court to actually issue a verdict that is in favor of the victims when it comes to fraud real estate in the GCC.
Roughly, how many people have fallen as a victim, fallen to this kind of fraud in the state of Kuwait? How many?
In the past years only, up to 20,000 people in Kuwait have been
20,000?
20,000. 63 countries.
Victims.
20,000 victims. Up to 63 companies were actually committed.
In the state of Kuwait?
In the state of Kuwait, because they were committing real estate fraud, whether that fraud was happening in Kuwait or outside. And if you can believe it or not, up to $10 billion was lost from those victims because they invested that money in real estate.
You hold this thought because we have a report regarding your information.
Real estate fraud lately has been the talk of the day. It has reached a worldwide scale, and among those countries, our beloved Kuwait reputation.
And that guy's name is Abdulaziz. This moment he is behind bars overseas in Kuwait, where he's serving a 10-year sentence for this. That's for money laundering and for ripping off fellow Kuwaitis in a real estate deal scam in Western New York.
So we took this upon ourselves to discuss this issue with you and see how we can solve the issue of the real estate fraud, and also how we can bring justice to those victims in Kuwait.
What about this? Where is justice?
Yes.
Mr. Melham, go ahead.
So here in Kuwait, we have laws regarding the selling of real estate outside of Kuwait and inside of Kuwait. And the laws are really good. They're well written, they're stated. But what's happening really is that criminals are trying to find loopholes around these laws. They're trying to find loopholes in the way it is being enforced. And so what they're doing is, so there's this process where they actually have to take their warranty deeds, get them stamped at certain ministries here in Kuwait. And what they're really doing is they're stamping some warranty deeds and leaving others hidden under the table. And so they start selling and selling. And if someone comes and tells them, what you're doing is illegal, they just take out the paperwork that is illegal and hide the paperwork that wasn't legally stamped. And so I think this is the first issue that we need to tackle. We need to enforce the law on them. And as I said previously, at Mashari al-Asami's law firm, I believe it was, we're very honored to see that we actually caught those criminals and had cases raised against them.
It's a pleasure having you here, honestly, because this is a very sensitive issue. Lots of people lost their savings, life savings, for some idiot who tried to sell them something it's not even on the map. But whose fault is it? This is my final question. Whose fault is it? Don't tell me the law or I would say it's the consumer himself. He should have made more researches regarding this kind of real estate. What do you think?
I think I can't blame the consumers because the consumers are in the country of law where law is actually enforced. And I think we shouldn't pinpoint fingers right now. I think we need to find the solution, and our solution right now is to compensate the victims. And at Mashari al-Asami's law firm, we worked very hard to track the money because that should be our first priority, to track the money to compensate the victims. And we found some very interesting information that I cannot disclose right now. But I believe that if the government continued working with the victims and the ministries continues working with the victims are going to be compensated.
Let's hope so.
Yes, let's hope so.
Thank you so much, Shahad Al-Mulham, attorney at law. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Pleasure.